Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I have a lot of news today, and I will start with a significant piece of news. Um, it has to do with, again, Saudi Arabia, and it seems like a lot of important developments occur over there between the leaders of Saudi Arabia and U.S. administration. It is a very important, still is, I think, an ally of the United States, not only because of the oil dealings that the two countries have, but also military support and geostrategic interest for the United States in the area. So this article is interesting because uh, uh, what I noticed. The American administration, people involved who are part of the U.S. administration, they tend, um, from from as far as I could see, they tend to get personal with their counterparts, and that is never a pleasant thing, especially when the counterparts have ways of hitting back. I know that self-awareness, it's a quality that you develop in time and you have to work on, or I don't know if it's self-awareness or it's simply the mentality of I don't care because I'm stronger and I can talk to you however I want and you can't do anything about it. I think the second one is the attitude that some bureaucrats in Washington use when they deal with um, or elected officials too with other leaders from other countries. They try to start the conversation by looking down on that person, by attacking that person personally, or starting with criticizing, like they have a more higher moral standing than the other country, when in actuality that's not real, or at least is debatable, much debatable. So this is an article from Insider by Bill Bostock from April 20th, 2022, and this is the title. Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, threatened to move Saudi Arabia closer to Russia and China to punish Biden for ostracizing him, report says. So I don't think that's a good thing to do this with volatile MBS. So it says his MBS suggested cozying up to Russia and China to punish Biden for sidelining him. Well, I don't know if it's only personal, but I think that's part of it. I think MBS has a big ego from his statements and some interviews I watched, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you have the reason to have a big ego. And I think he has the reason to have a big ego. Why not? It says here that as President Biden has slammed Saudi Arabia's rights record and he is yet to meet MBS in person. Well, he slammed Saudi Arabia rights through, human rights record. That means what you have in the past. The record shows in the past. So can, for instance, MBS talk about the U.S. Human rights record, the past? You know what I mean? Now you can say, well, certain things were addressed and all that, but if you listen to the current U.S. mass media and uh, the certain party members, and they say that this is the most racist country in the world still, and they tell you that it's inequality, which obviously it is because we were made different. We have different qualities and abilities, but they say it's a systemic racism. They say it's you know inequity and so on. So it's if MBS would talk about, hey, what's going on in your country, what would Biden say? I'm assuming he's going to just first. I don't give Biden a lot of you know credit for anything. He's just I think he's not in the right place, let's put it that way. And it says here that MBS and King Salman met last year to discuss how to get back at Biden for the slides. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily Biden, because it's the administration who imposes certain things and talks in a certain way with this Saudis. So Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman threatened to move the country closer to Russia and China to punish President Joe Biden, for this distancing himself from the kingdom. Well, what can you do? Just wait and cry until Biden is gonna toss you a little bone. Since coming to power, the Biden administration has criticized Saudi human rights abuses, which they are, as far as I got information, and it's available. But all of a sudden, how come all of a sudden nothing changed in Saudi Arabia for I don't know how many, nothing major change, let's put it. And now they criticize. Why do they criticize? What don't they get? So they start criticizing. More oil for cheaper price. So I don't know. It says here that reeled in U.S. support for since coming to power, the Biden administration has criticized Saudi human rights abuses, reeled in U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen, and shunned Crown Prince Mohammed, with Biden yet to meet him in person. I don't know who has to meet whom. If the Biden meets the prince or the prince meets Biden, I don't know exactly who's in a better position here. In February 2021, the U.S. sanctioned dozens of Saudis believed to have played a role in the 2018 murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi. The Crown Prince wasn't directly affected by the sanctions. In response, the journal reported, citing Saudi officials, that MBS, his advisors, and his aging father, King Salman, met last year at a seaside palace to discuss what further punishments Biden might have in store and how the kingdom could get ahead of them. I will continue claiming that the Saudis are in for a little help like Gaddafi had and Saddam. I'm pretty sure that's the end game at one point. That's my assessment. If they continue like that, they can't be allowed. Saudi Arabia cannot be allowed to veer off the party line and the big clubs membership. Even they have to shackle Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia will never go anywhere else. There's going to be a big war if they try to do something else. Now they're busy a little bit with Ukraine and other stuff, but I don't know if it's for real or not. But the U.S. will never lose Saudi Arabia. That's my assessment. But we'll see. Time will tell. So the group discussed releasing more political prisoners to appease Biden. The journal reported, but Crown Prince Mohammed instead said Saudi Arabia should threaten to solidify alliance with Russia and China. So Mohammed plays hard ball here. Saudi Arabia released its most high-profile political detainee, and then the State Department did not immediately respond to the request for comment from insiders. So there are some people released from prison, but it says in the Saudi Arabia U.S. relationship has continued to worsen, with the Saudis upset that the U.S. is failing to guarantee its security. What do you mean guarantee its security? We got so much money and so much military aid and technology from the U.S., like 15, 16 billion with Trump, and before, security against whom? What kind of security they need? In the face of strike on the Arabian Peninsula, Yemen, by the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Maybe it's time to make some friendships in the area, and then you're not going to need those security things. But if you have the outside influences creating problems all the time in the area, then nobody likes nobody. And then yeah, you need to do, it's yeah, you keep the little fire burning, and just from time to time you just toss a little log of wood on it, and piece of wood, and the fire gets back on, and hey, 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 there's the enemy. And you go to that guy and say, hey, hey, there's the enemy. I'm pretty sure they can solve problems by themselves in the Middle East. Yeah, you can say, yeah, they fought then, they can do this, but I think it's a continuous outside interest keep this Middle East not in a, I think, not in a balance. They keep it always at the verge of exploding, or like a military conflict all the time. We have one developing over there, and what happens in Israel? What's going on with um, um, Iraq? They don't tell us the whole thing. You just check and see what's going in Iraq. The thing Iraq is a piece of pacified country, and democracy flourishes over there, and yeah, I think it's anyway. Furthermore, Saudi Arabia has also failed to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine and has sought to avoid upsetting Russia by ignoring U.S. requests, demands, I would say, for it to increase oil output to make up for the White House's ban on Russian oil imports. Crown Prince Mohammed reportedly ignored Biden's phone calls with big balls as the U.S. tried to woo the Saudi for more oil. Well, if you call him, if you call the prince names, and you say that he is responsible for those crimes, that crime that occurred in Turkey with Khashoggi, and you say this and that, how do you think the guys should respond? Answer your phone and wiggle his tail while he talks to you, and you barely utter a few words, conscious words. You need to be slapped from 3 seconds, so you can wake up and continue the conversation or whatever that is. Uh, you know, it's the way the world is led. Let's put it this way, or conducted, controlled by the big guy in the big club, is the one based on, as I always say, threats and blackmail. So what do you expect at one point to happen when your servants or slaves that you threaten and you beat and you do all that, you change things whenever you feel like? How do you think they would react to that? They will love you. They no, they would be frustrated, and they will try the first opportunity to get away from your plantation and maybe go to a better plantation, because it doesn't seem that you can really be independent. You can be, but then you're a pariah. And then being alone against a club, how many chances you got? So the approach that the US, I think, had towards other countries was a inflexible, intolerant attitude. It was either my way or a highway, but not highway, because the highway comes my way. That's the way. I mean, it's not like, oh, my way or highway. No, it's my way or my way. You have two options: my way or my way. Now pick. So it is going to show. It's just right now. It's a challenge of the big clubs' supremacy on this planet, and it's going to be decided mostly in Ukraine. Not necessarily decided, but that's where we see the big rupture between the world order. And we'll see. Competition is always good, but it's also bad, because when you have this club, they have the citizens, and the citizens could be always put in their place when they're told that, hey, the enemy is going to do this to you, so you got to accept this uh, policy that would infringe your freedom and your liberties, because we're afraid of these guys. So that's a bad thing, for instance. Instead of saying, we're going to give you more rights because we're better than that. Sometimes that works that way. But then it's competition, resources, and you have to deal with people. But the world doesn't function like that with negotiations. Who's got a bigger gun, and the number behind those will come in front and negotiate, and they're gonna cast that shadow over the opposite team. And the same is true for the opposite team. They will try to influence somehow, psychologically and with financial and military might, the other side. So I don't think Saudi Arabia would be able to ever defect the big club. I don't know if it really wants to defect the big club. I think he wants to play both ends here, but I don't think the big club would allow that. They don't want independent countries. They want, as someone says, vassal countries. You know, as I said, slave countries, uh, house servant countries, and the big guy. And the house servant countries for the big club is one, maybe two, sometimes, So, all right. Well, I have more news to cover. See you in a few moments. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. See ya.